Do you know someone who is functional on the outside, but fractured on the inside? Protesting. Is it changing anything? Let's start thinking differently. If protests really worked, there would be visible change. We are still protesting. There has been no change. Actually, things have been getting worse. Why? Because when we are anti something, whatever we are anti has to exist. Healing with the Rev podcast is going to bring you comfort, build community, and give you some inspiration to move forward. Pro peace. For those of you who are old enough to remember who Mother Teresa was, Mother Teresa during the Vietnam War was asked to come to an anti-war rally. She said, I will not be there, but when you have a peace rally, invite me, I will come. She understood the difference between anti whatever and peace. So let's be for peace. And peace does not mean sitting on your butt doing nothing. It's very active. I'm Reverend Teresa Heupel. I am your host of Healing with the Rev podcast. I have lost loved ones to death. I am here to honor your faith tradition, and here you can find peace, calm, and clarity. Peace starts with community building, one person at a time, standing for something rather than against something. When we stand for, we're taking a stance for what we want. Anti-war, anti-ice, or whatever is going on today as you are listening to this, whatever we are anti really does have to exist. We're giving power over to whatever it is we are wanting to not exist. If we want to abolish something, we need to be pro whatever that is. For this, we want pro peace. We want to be for peace. I don't think anyone would argue with me about that, but they haven't changed their mindset from something negative to something positive. So let's build something positive in this world. Peace building starts with faith. Whatever your faith is, whether it's Christian, Jewish, Islam, or anything else, I say have a faith in a higher power somewhere, because life gets difficult. And when life gets difficult, sometimes we don't know what to do with that. Building with faith, people are coming together. They're learning together. They're expounding their beliefs. They're expounding justice. And aren't we all wanting social justice? Seriously. Drum circles. It's a great way to release pent-up emotions. At my church, we have a drum circle. And when I go there, I can pound on the djembe drums, as you'll see on this picture. There's a lot of djembe drums. It's a great way because you can come up with your own rhythm and you can come up with your own chant in your head. It's pretty awesome. The podcast format, we're going to have real stories. I'm probably going to be talking more than doing interviews. I have a lot of experience in a lot of different things. I'm going to give you some practical tips and some uplifting interviews as we go along. Expressions of heartache, honoring our pain. This woman is feeling the weight of her loss. Whatever that loss is, she is not sure she wants to face reality. Sometimes reality is really difficult because reality is not someplace where we want to be. But we are here and we are now. And if you're listening to this, you're paying attention. So you are present in this moment. She appears to be afraid to see what is in front of her, whether she lost a spouse or a friend or a child or lost a job, gone into retirement, doesn't know what to do with her time. There's so many different kinds of ways of heartache, so many expressions of heartache. And whatever you're feeling, know that you are in great company and everything you feel is all good. And so I would ask you to continue to watch these podcasts because they're going to be informative. Some of them are about loss of some sort. Some of them are about these protests and peace and how we can move forward. Honor yourself by doing what is right for you in the moment. Welcome back to Steady by Design, the podcast for people who are ready to stop managing their emotions from the outside and start understanding them from the inside. I'm Reverend Teresa Heupel, Reverend, grief specialist, shamanic practitioner, and someone who has heard the words, just calm down, one too many times in her life. Today we are talking about anxiety, and I want to start with something that I think is going to change the way you think about this word forever. Anxiety is not a malfunction. It's not a weakness. It is not a character flaw. It is not evidence that you are broken or fragile or incapable of handling life. Anxiety is your nervous system doing its job. The problem is, it is doing a job that was designed for a very different world than the one we actually live in. And nobody gave it the updated memo. Let me explain. About 50,000 years ago, give or take, your ancestors were living in a world where the threats were very real and very physical. A predator in the grass, a rival tribe at the border, a storm rolling in with no shelter available. In that world, your nervous system developed an extraordinarily sophisticated threat response The moment danger was detected, real, physical, immediate danger, your body did something remarkable. It flooded your system with adrenaline and cortisol. Your heart rate spiked, your breathing shallowed, your muscles tensed, your digestion shut down, your vision narrowed, your entire biological system oriented itself toward one thing and one thing only: survive this moment. That response saved your ancestors' lives repeatedly. It is the reason you exist right now. Here is the problem. That same nervous system, that same extraordinarily sophisticated threat response is the one you are running on today. In a world where the threats are not a predator in the grass, but a difficult email from your boss, an argument with your teenager, a bill you don't know how to pay, a news cycle that never stops delivering catastrophe. Your nervous system cannot tell the difference between a lion and a late mortgage payment. It just knows. Threat detected, activate everything. And so you walk around in a state of chronic activation, heart racing, thought spiraling, body tense, breathing shallow, unable to sleep, unable to focus, unable to simply be present in your own life because every cell in your body is preparing for a danger that never quite arrives. That is anxiety, and it is exhausting. After the break, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the feelings wheel. Let's pause here for just a moment. This is what I call the steady moment. A pause to remember that peace in the world begins with peace inside us. One thing I've learned from working with people over many years is that the world does not become peaceful through more reaction. It becomes peaceful through more steadiness. When your nervous system is regulated, your thinking becomes clearer, your decisions become wiser, and your presence alone begins to influence the people around you. That's the work I do through what I call steady by design. I help people regulate stress, restore clarity, and return to peace, both in their bodies and in their lives. Because when we become steady inside ourselves, we stop reacting to chaos and begin creating stability in the world around us. And that is where real peace begins. Book your discovery call using this QR code. Now, let's continue. Let's look at anxiety on the feelings wheel, because like anger and grief, anxiety is not one thing. It is a whole family of experiences that each need their own response. Anxiety lives primarily in the fearful core emotion cluster. And when you move into the secondary and tertiary rings, you start to see how many different faces anxiety wears. There is worried anxiety, the kind that lives in your mind, the endless what ifs, the catastrophic thinking, the mental rehearsal of every possible bad outcome. This anxiety is cognitive. It lives primarily above the neck. There is nervous anxiety, the physical kind, butterflies in your stomach, shaky hands, dry mouth, racing heart. This anxiety is somatic and it lives in the body and announces itself loudly. There is stressed anxiety, the kind that comes from too much demand and not enough resource, too many obligations, too little time, too little support. This anxiety is situational. It is your nervous system accurately reporting that something in your life is out of balance. There's apprehensive anxiety, the quiet, low grade dread that sits in the background of everything. You can't quite name what you're afraid of, but something feels like it's about to go wrong. This anxiety is anticipatory. It is your nervous system scanning the horizon for a threat it can't quite see. There's overwhelmed anxiety, the kind where everything feels like too much all at once and you cannot figure out where to start or what to do first, so you do nothing at all. This anxiety is paralyzing. It shuts down forward movement completely. And there is uneasy anxiety, the subtle, persistent sense that something is off in a relationship, in a situation, in your body, in your life. This anxiety is intuitive. And this one deserves special attention because sometimes what we call anxiety is actually wisdom trying to get our attention. Different experiences, different origins, different responses needed. Now let's talk about why calming down doesn't work, because I know you've tried it. We all have. Someone tells you to just breathe, to think positive, to count to 10, to put it in perspective, to remember that most of what you worry about never happens. And maybe it helps for a moment. Maybe it takes the edge off, but it doesn't actually resolve anything because an hour later or a day later, the anxiety is back, sometimes stronger than before. Here's why. Telling an activated nervous system calm down is like telling a fire alarm to stop beeping without checking whether there's actually a fire. The alarm is not the problem. The alarm is information, and until you address what the alarm is responding to, it will keep beeping. Most anxiety management techniques work on the symptom. They turn the volume down on the alarm, and sometimes that is necessary. Sometimes you genuinely need the volume down so you can function. But volume management is not healing. Healing requires going underneath the anxiety and asking, what is this actually about? What is my nervous system trying to protect me from? What does it believe is true about this situation? And is that belief accurate? Those are the questions that actually resolve anxiety at its root. And those are the questions that Steady by Design is built to help you answer. Let me tell you what actually works. Not instead of breathing exercises or grounding techniques. Those have their place, but underneath them, before them, as the foundation that makes everything else actually stick. What works is nervous system education combined with emotional processing. Understanding what is happening in your body and why removes the fear of the fear. Because one of the most insidious things about anxiety is that we become anxious about our anxiety. We feel the physical symptoms and we interpret them as evidence that something is terribly wrong, which activates more anxiety, which produces more symptoms, which confirms our fear that something is terribly wrong. It is a loop, and the only way out of the loop is to interrupt it with understanding. When you know that your racing heart is adrenaline doing its job, not a heart attack. When you know that your shallow breathing is your body preparing to run, not evidence that you are dying. When you know that your catastrophic thoughts are your threat detection system scanning for danger, not prophecy about your future, something shifts. The anxiety doesn't disappear immediately, but it loses its power to terrify you. And that is the beginning of everything. Here is how Steady by Design walks you through anxiety specifically. Surface it. We get precise. What kind of anxious are you right now? Worried? Nervous? Overwhelmed? Apprehensive? Uneasy? Each one tells us something different about what your nervous system needs. We also check in with the body. Where are you holding this anxiety? Physically, your chest, your stomach, your throat, your shoulders. The body always knows before the mind does. Understand it. We go underneath the anxiety to find the relief that is driving it, because anxiety is always built on a belief, usually an unconscious one, something like, I am not safe. I am not enough. I cannot handle what is coming. If I stop being vigilant, something terrible will happen. We bring that belief gently into the light, not to argue with it, but to examine it, to ask, where did this come from? How old is this fear? Is it still true today? Move through it. This is where the shamanic drumming becomes particularly powerful for anxiety. The steady, predictable rhythm of the drum does something that no amount of thinking can do. It regulates the nervous system directly through sound, the theta frequency, and trains your body into a calmer state. The predictability of the beat, beat after beat after beat, unwavering, reliable, sends a message to your nervous system that the world is not as chaotic as it currently believes. You don't have to do anything. You just have to listen and let the drum remind your body what steady actually feels like. Anchor it. We give you something to come back to. A felt sense of safety that lives in your body, not just a thought in your mind, because anxiety lives in the body and the antidote has to live there too. We anchor calm not as a concept, but as a physical experience that your nervous system can remember and return to. I want to say something to anyone who has been living with anxiety for so long that it just feels like just the way you are. Maybe you've said it to yourself. I'm just an anxious person. That's just how I'm wired. That's just who I am. I want to gently and lovingly push back on that. Anxiety is something you experience. It is not something you are. Your nervous system learned to be hypervigilant, probably for very good reasons at some point in your life, probably because hypervigilance kept you safe when safety was not guaranteed. But you are not your nervous system's learned patterns, and learned patterns can be unlearned, rewired, updated with new information. That is not a quick process. I will not pretend it is. Real nervous system regulation takes time, consistency, and support. But it is absolutely possible, and you deserve to find out what your life feels like when anxiety is not running it. Your challenge for this week: the next time you feel anxiety rising, before you try to make it stop, get curious about it instead. Put your hand on your chest or your stomach, wherever you feel it most, and ask it one question. What are you trying to protect me from right now? Just listen. Don't judge the answer. Don't argue with it. Just hear it. Because your anxiety has been trying to tell you something, and it will keep getting louder until someone finally stops and listens. Be the one who listens. If you have enjoyed this episode, please like, follow, and subscribe here. Your follow and subscribe allows me to make better quality content for you. I will bring in guests on occasion. If this message resonates with you, I bring the Steady by Design framework to organizations, communities, and events that want to lead with clarity instead of reaction. I'd love to continue the conversation. Thank you for being here today. If this episode helped you understand something about yourself, please share it, because anxiety is one of the most common and most misunderstood human experiences. And there are people in your life right now who have been told to just calm down for years, when what they actually needed was someone to help them understand what was happening inside them. Steady by Design is available now in beta at steady-by-design.netlify.app. If anxiety is something you navigate, come experience the 4 phases for yourself. The drum is ready, and your nervous system already knows how to be steady. We're just going to remind it. Until next time, stay steady. You were designed for this.